Marking Scores, a guide for student conductors. Many students view score marking as a kind of crutch. After all, if the information on the page is made easier to see, why bother learning it more thoroughly? The fact is, score marking is one of the most important methods of obtaining a deep knowledge of a score, what we often call internalizing the music, having a map of the piece in your head. The very act of notating your score forces you to spend the time necessary to analyze and assimilate the music. And, if done right, it should free your eyes from the page and allow you to connect with your players, which, after all, is what conducting is really about. Score marking is a path towards achieving that goal, not an end to itself. Once you've determined what instruments the composer has written for, it's time to put pencil to paper. First off, are there any directions from the composer in a language you don't know? What did the writer mean by con molto dolcezza? Or nicht schleppend? Or un peu retenu? Write the translations in for yourself and highlight them. Look for tempo establishment markings. Put them in boxes, or underline or circle them. And again, always look up phrases or words you don't know. Repeats, make them larger for the eye. Same with first and second endings, da capos, cuts, jumps to coda, etc. Caesuras, fermatas. Again, make them bigger and more obvious. You should also mark all meter changes, either by enlarging the numbers or adding slashes. Watch out for score divisions on the page. Publishers of traditional concert music, as opposed to pop or contemporary genres, will often maximize space by eliminating empty staves on any given page. Scores with multiple systems on a page may or may not have system dividers, those slash marks that remind you not to turn the page yet. If they are not present, add them. If they are, darken or enlarge them. Seek out and mark changes in tempo, retard, rallentando, accelerando, as well as their counterparts in other languages. You can highlight them, make them bigger, or use a more graphic notation, a squiggly line for slowing down, a forward-facing arrow for speeding up, or even, if you prefer, a set of opposing arrows. As you might expect, individual conductors may use different methods. For marking dynamics, go through the score bar by bar in each staff to find and indicate them. In a red pencil or marker, circle or highlight everything mezzo forte or louder. In blue, mark all dynamics mezzo piano or softer, and highlight crescendo and decrescendo shapes in their appropriate color as well. Do the same with written dynamic indicators such as crescendo, decrescendo, diminuendo. And perhaps even add a shape that covers the entire scope of the alteration. The beauty of this method is that the eye sees swaths of color, representing the sounds the composer wanted. Yet another approach is to rewrite the dynamic in a large, bold manner, perhaps even circling it. Each single mark in this case is designed to cover a large group of instruments. Again, color can really help. Now to the business of marking cues. It's no surprise to learn that here again there are various methods, but they're all meant to do the same thing: pull your eye and your mind to the cue. Try marking cues with a left parenthesis, or a bar, or a splash of color. Any system that works for you. You should also write the name of the instrument, probably abbreviated. 2 quick thoughts. Mark the cue where it happens in the score, not a beat or a bar beforehand. You need to learn to mentally do the math to anticipate and prep cues. Also, Don't create a cheat line somewhere in the score where you've compiled all of your cueing. Train your eye to sweep the entire page and know where things are in the score. Marking phrase lengths. Here again, there are different methods for doing this. Some draw darker bar lines to group measures together. You might mark the number of bars at the beginning of each phrase, usually below the bottom staff, and perhaps in a box. In complex groupings, you might even use mathematical notation, like 4 plus 1 or 3 plus 2 to represent a 5-bar phrase. Or you can use graphic markings above the staff to symbolize phrases. Different conductors may have different codes, but in this example, a brace represents a group of 4 bars. A dome is a 2-bar phrase, and a tent is a phrase with 3 bars. When marking features in your scores, you can experiment with these different ideas to find what works for you. The key thing here is to stay consistent within the piece so there is no confusion. Your job is to take an overwhelming swarm of dots and lines and coalesce them into something meaningful for you. The ultimate goal in all of this is to wean yourself off the page. The orchestra needs your eyes and face as much as it needs your arms. To do this, you need to know the music thoroughly, a process that starts with score marking.